As far as our guest speaker for graduation this year, this is an individual that was a former student several years ago. I had the pleasure of teaching this student, like many of you, at the Ferguson unit. I believe he was enrolled in a workforce education program at that time. And like many students that we teach, you are teaching students that once they receive their degree, once they are released to society, unfortunately, as their instructors, we never sometimes know what happens to that individual. On occasion, they may return back to the system, but in most cases, as President Brown mentioned, they move on to the next phase of their life. They reunite with family members. They go on to accomplish additional things that make you very proud of them, but only if you know those things and know what those achievements are. We've had a great pleasure to have this individual back for a couple of special events this weekend, including graduation for today. He left the system, paroled out. He'll expand more on that story in just a moment, but he knew at that time he wanted to continue his education, because education is truly a journey in life. And I think this is a case where someone had maybe more than one conviction. He had the criminal conviction, and he did time for that, but he also did the right kind of time. He also had a second conviction, which was to continue his education and, most importantly, embrace his dreams. Because there's one thing that time can't take away from you, no matter where you do it, and that's your dreams and the other convictions that you do have for your life. He went on to complete an undergraduate degree at the University of Houston. Upon completion of that degree, he was accepted into the prestigious graduate program for filmmaking at New York University. He's got a great story to tell. He's got a great documentary out called Evolution of a Criminal, aired back in January on PBS. He's going to share that story with you today, and I want to bring him out right now. His name is Darius Clark Monroe. Darius.
Thank you. I just want to first just thank Lee College, thank Dean Zuniga and Paul Allen and the Lee College community for inviting me to speak today. When I was invited to come here today, I was, for the last few weeks, I've been trying to figure out what I was going to say, if I was going to write something, and how I was going to say it. First, I just want to say that I'm just really, really proud of you all, that when I look out at you, I don't see convicts, I don't see offenders, I don't see inmates. I see men who have dreams, I see men who have desires, men who have goals, men who want something out of life, men who understand that we're all born with a purpose, that we all have a gift within us, and that no circumstance, no obstacle is going, I see men who are not going to allow those obstacles to destroy them and to defeat them. Like I said, I'm just really, really proud of you all to be here today. This is a great honor. I was, like Paul stated, I also was a student of Lee College when I was 17, 18 years old on Ferguson unit back in 1998. I received my GED at Lee College, and I received my GED in prison and eventually went on to Lee College. And at the time, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And so I know today is about you all. I don't want to take up too much time, but I just want to give three little scenarios. And last night, screening the film on Ferguson unit sort of inspired me to give just this commencement today. But I just want to tell you about the three different times I left Ferguson. When you go to prison, you never think you're going to go back to that place, ever set foot back into that institution. And I swear to you, I never thought when I left on that Bluebird and then eventually left on the Greyhound that I'd ever be coming back to Midway, Texas. But the first time I left Midway, I was 20 years old, about to turn 21, and this was right before 9/11. I was released. I didn't have any money. I had family support, and it's so beautiful having you all here today because, to be honest, there's no way I would have been able to survive my incarceration and even survive being out without the support of my family and my loved ones. They are the ones who held me down and provided that foundation for any success that I had going forward. But when I left here, all I had was my GED, and I had 54 college credits from Lee College. And right before I was released, I decided to transfer to the University of Houston as a student, to continue my studies, and I was accepted. When I was released, I didn't have any employment, and it took me months to find a job. And I spent, all this time telling the truth on my applications, explaining that I had been arrested. I had a first-degree felony, but that turned my life around. I'd gone to college, I had a trade. I took auto mechanics on Ferguson unit. And even after explaining all of that, I was rejected. I was denied an opportunity for employment. And this went on for quite a while. And this was, my mother, she was working a full-time job, and so she let me have her car on the weekends and on the evenings to start to do a little job hunt and search. But it was really, really difficult to get my life together. And eventually there were two guys who I was on Ferguson unit with, Mark Hyder, Ciotis, Eglin, who were working at this company on the northwest side of Houston. And they told me that this company hired individuals who had a record. And that was the first time I received employment. And that employment was beautiful because it allowed me to get some stability. It allowed me to get myself together. And it also allowed me to eventually pay to go to the University of Houston. Because when I was released, I didn't understand anything about financial aid. I didn't have an email address. I didn't know anything. And just to give you a little background for what I was arrested for, I was arrested for aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon for robbing a Bank of America when I was 16 years old, when I was in high school. And I'd always been a fan of school, always been a fan of, doing my work. I was in the student council, I was in the National Honor Society, Spanish Honor Society. But at the time, my family was struggling. And as some of you probably understand, when you are young, and I'm the oldest child, and I'm the only son, to see my mother work a full-time job, work hard, to see my stepfather work hard, and to see everyone in my family live paycheck to paycheck, it just took a toll on me, and I felt like I needed to do something to help. And even my little part-time job didn't seem like enough to help, and I ended up getting involved in this robbery. And when this robbery happened, I literally thought my whole entire life would be over. The money that we received from that bank was a temporary fix for a much larger systemic problem in this country, which is this endless cycle of poverty that has just ravaged so many communities in our society. But after getting convicted, and I was fortunate enough, it was my first offense, and I received a 5-year sentence, and I did 3 years of that time. But when I was on Ferguson unit, I realized immediately that I didn't want to languish, I didn't want to waste away, and that as a human being, we all have the capacity to do more and to be better. And I just felt like I wasn't living up to my full capacity as an individual, that I wasn't doing my all. And after having to chop down trees, dig ditches, and pick cotton, I had enough of that. So the moment they allowed me to get a lay-in and to get in school, I was going to take as much advantage of that as possible. And that school provided structure. It also provided an escape. Being in the classroom with the professors from Lee College, that was just one of those rare times where I felt like I was a human being, where I was being treated as a fellow human being, and I was allowed to engage in academics and allowed to have discussions that I really couldn't have back on the block. And it was a great escape. And I was introduced to so many great science classes and accounting classes and business courses, and all of that was useful. And so fast forward to me getting released, after finally getting this job, getting settled, I decided to continue my studies at the University of Houston. And because of my time here on at Ferguson, I had enough credits where I was almost a junior in college. And that's a beautiful thing because, again, that's not me having to start my education, start my life all over again. I had started the foundation while I was incarcerated and was allowed to continue once released. And so at University of Houston, I finished, graduated. I always wanted to go in film. I knew no one in film. I knew no one at New York University. But while I was in prison, I saw an article at USA Today that was talking about the top film schools in the country. And NYU was one of those schools. It listed Spike Lee as alumni, Jim Jarmusch, Martin Scorsese, and it listed all these guys who seemed like rebels to me. And I just knew that, NYU seemed like a far-fetched dream. It seemed like something I could never accomplish. Like I said, I didn't have any contacts, but I just kept believing, and I kept going step by step by step. And I just took it one class at a time, one semester at a time, and made sure that my GPA was good enough to compete with the students who were out in the free world. And my GPA that I had here at Lee College was, I did well, and I continued that on the outside of the University of Houston. And so after applying to NYU, I was fortunate enough to get accepted into the program in 2004. And I spent 3 years doing coursework there, and eventually I decided my last year at film school to make a film about just my life and what influences a 16-year-old to commit a bank robbery, what systemic and familial and environmental influences pushes someone to make that choice. And it's been a hell of a ride, I gotta say. It's been a hell of a ride. I never in my life expected any of this to happen. I was just so excited to be free, so excited not to be told when to go to the shower, what to eat, what to do, just to have my freedom back. And so the opportunity to use the education that I received here and to continue to succeed and excel, that's blown me away. So that's when I first got out. So I'll tell you about the second time I ended up having to leave Ferguson unit. So in 2007, I started working on this documentary, Evolution of a Criminal. And I wanted to initially go back down to Houston to apologize to the victims that were inside of the bank. And that was going to be the big story. I just wanted to go and apologize, because a lot of times when you commit a crime, you don't really focus on the victims if nothing violent happened. We live in a country that if it's not bloody, if it's not gory, we don't really cover it. But I didn't understand at the time that there's a such thing as psychological and emotional trauma. And I just felt like the people who were inside of that bank deserved an apology. And it came to be a full circle moment when I was standing inside of a bank in Manhattan during film school, about to go to the teller, cash a check, and I thought somebody who was outside the window was going to come in and rob the bank that I was in. And I had a full-on panic attack. And I was frozen, and I was sweating, and I couldn't figure out why I was freaking out, but it was because I thought I was going to be victimized. I just thought karmically this is going to happen to me because of what I had done. And it didn't happen, but it stuck with me, and I couldn't shake it, and it stuck with me so much where I took a whole year using the Freedom of Information Act to get my entire case to try to find these people who were inside of the bank. And the film started to become bigger and bigger, and my whole entire family, for the most part, they're in this film, and the film really tries to get to the crux of the matter, to get underneath the surface. But what led me back to Ferguson is that I wanted to shoot in the prison. I didn't get permission at the time, but I wanted to go outside and shoot some shots of the prison where I was at for the film. And I came back in 2007, and I remember coming back up to the Ferguson unit and shooting some exterior shots. And what struck me is just how it seemed like time had moved, how everything had still been the same. It was like it was frozen to me. And I was on the yard squad, and so I was just looking out at the grass and all these memories of me being a kid, me being a teenager, being on this piece of property. It really, really shook me up. And again, at that point, we ended up getting chased off the unit because we weren't supposed to be shooting any footage. But at that time, when we were being chased off the property, I told myself, I said, well, that was the last time I'm going to see Ferguson unit. And I was happy about that. And then Paul calls me a few months ago, which is going to lead me to my last time at Ferguson unit. And Paul asked me, he says, we saw the film on PBS. We would love for you to come back and screen the film at Ferguson. And as soon as he asked me that, I started to tear up, because I was like, am I really going to set foot? It's one thing to go outside and shoot some exterior shots, for the film, but it's another thing to go back into the place where you were incarcerated. And I said yes immediately, but then as soon as I got off the phone, I was like, oh, I cannot believe I said yes to this. Because it just, I just felt like emotionally it was going to be a lot. And so the third time going back to Ferguson was last night. And as we walked through the front of the gate, I was admiring how the guys in the guard squad still kept the grass nice and tidy. I was also aware for the first time of just how much air conditioning was being pumped into the front of the unit. I'd never walked in that part of the unit. I always walked out of the back. So I didn't know that there was more AC up in the front. And I was cool. I was pretty calm going through security, and everything was fine. And but soon as they opened up the back door and I ended up walking in the main hallway, I was shook up and I just cried. And again, it was like time had stopped. And I could see myself in the chow hall, walking down the hallway, and I was like, wow, I was here from 17 to 20, and I'm almost 35. And what really shook me up is when I saw there were men there who were incarcerated with me 15 years ago. And these were men who I was in college with, who I was in GD classes with. These were remarkable men who had learned from their mistakes, who had healed, who had transitioned, and who were stuck still on this place, on this unit. And it broke my heart to see that. It really broke my heart. But the thing is, it was incredible because there was still so much positive energy in the room. There was still so much healing and then transformation. But it just really struck me again, just how, as a society, as human beings, we don't properly value mortality and time, and how you can't waste time. To see those men almost 15 years after I left on that unit, these men who were educated, these men who were motivated, these men who had desires, and to still see them there was shocking to me. And I understand that, people have long sentences, and I understand that you have, you have to do some time if you do a certain crime, but I just feel like, again, our concept of time is off. I said because as everyone in this room, we've all made mistakes, we all have regrets, and we all hope that there is enough compassion and kindness that someone will forgive us and allow us an opportunity to make a better decision, to have a second chance or a third chance. There's no way I would be here if I didn't get that opportunity. I messed up many times. Even after I got out, even now, 15 years after being out, it is still difficult to pay bills, difficult to survive. It is a world out there that is chaotic. There's a lot of tension. Nothing is going to come easy. Every single time you feel like you get over one mountain, there's another larger mountain waiting for you. But the thing that keeps me pushing forward is that I just won't refuse to quit. I refuse to quit. And seeing those men last night on Ferguson, seeing the fact that they weren't broken down, that these men still had their respect after so much time. These guys weren't quitters. These guys did not give up. They didn't throw in the towel. There's so many people who give up so quickly, who let things just completely devour and destroy them, and they don't understand that, again, it is a miracle. When you understand the fact that you are here on this earth, it is a miracle that you are here. The odds of you not being here are extremely high. And so the fact that you're here, all of us, we have something to do with the time that we have while we're here. Whether you're an officer, whether you are incarcerated, we all have something within us. We all have a gift. We all have something that we need to release and to feed back into society. I'm just really, again, proud of the fact that you all are already making the steps in here for what's going to happen on the outside. And like I said earlier, it's not going to be easy, but this is just the beginning of a much larger story that you are part of, a much larger vision, and you all can really go after anything you want to. I had no clue that I'd ever meet Spike Lee, that I'd ever meet. We had a screening for Harry Belafonte. This film has traveled all over the country, has screened in Poland and Spain, in Australia. And this was far-fetched to me. This was not on my mind. I spent 7 years working on this film, and the goal was simply to just finish the project and see it through. And the fact that you all are here today means you saw it through, that you didn't quit, you pushed through. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And, I guess my last thing that I'm going to say is just, a lot of times we talk about, self-responsibility, pulling yourself up from the bootstraps, self-motivation. And, I believe in self-motivation and having to be driven within. But, when you look across here, this is who you feed off and you get your energy, your family, your professors, your teacher. These people don't go away. When I was released, at every single turn, there was somebody who said, keep going, keep pushing, keep moving. And that was the only way I was able to survive. But it's an honor to be here today. Thank you for having me, and congratulations.